Okay, what is photosynthesis all about? It's all about making high energy electrons. You want to take that sunlight energy, you want to get these two electrons really excited, full of energy, so that they can do a job. Now, the job that they do basically is you get NADP plus added to a hydrogen atom, a hydrogen ion, doesn't have an electron at all. So you have an H plus, NADP plus, that's two pluses, so you need two minuses. The two minuses are the two high energy electrons. Basically speaking, the NADP plus and the H plus get together to make NADPH, which carries those two electrons where they need to go. Where do they need to go? They need to go over to something called the Calvin cycle, where they can go ahead and arrange the rearranging of making things work out properly to turn regular carbon dioxide into glucose. Now, how does this happen? This happens inside the chloroplast. We talked about chlorophyll being something that you find in most plants. Well, the chlorophyll is contained in chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are little organelles inside of a cell that are where the photosynthesis happens. Inside that chloroplast, there are two things. There are thylakoids that look like little stacks of green pancakes all over the place, and stroma, the fluid those little stacks of green pancakes are in. Now, the first part of photosynthesis is something called a light-dependent reaction. Now, what that does is that creates ATP and NADPH, basically by getting these electrons excited and adding a phosphate group to the ADP and sticking together the NADP plus the H plus to make NADPH. It will be easier if I show you this diagram. This diagram, you can see the thing that looks like a stack of little pancakes, little green pancakes. Well, that is indeed the thylakoid. In a particular stack, if you're talking about one stack, you call it a grana. If you're talking about one little pancake in the stack, you call it a granum. But that light-dependent reaction is basically that you see it there, the light goes zapping through the thylakoid, and in there, it gets those electrons all excited. It creates ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. What ATP does is that is the currency of energy in the cell. So anything that goes on in your cell is done through spending ATP and having it turn back into ADP. It's how work gets done. The other thing it makes is it makes NADPH. NADPH is also needed in the Calvin cycle to do the hard work. So basically what's going on in the light-dependent reaction is the chloroplast is creating what's needed to actually do the job of turning carbon dioxide into glucose. So it's almost more like prep work. It's almost like lifting weights before you go down in the football, in training for time to strengthen yourself up to go to the football field. It's like carb loading the night before a marathon in order to make sure that you have the necessary fuel to make it all the way through the marathon. And this light-dependent reaction, as you can see from the diagram, that is what turns the water into oxygen. It uses up those hydrogen atoms, to make that H plus kind of higher energy hydrogen ion, leaving the oxygen as a waste product that is not necessary. So that's what's going on, the light-dependent reaction in the thylakoid in that first part of photosynthesis. The second part of photosynthesis on the other side is the Calvin cycle. And the Calvin cycle takes the products of the light-dependent reaction and takes them in a reaction that doesn't require any light to happen while it's going on. Essentially, what the Calvin cycle is all about is taking ATP and NADPH to transform carbon dioxide into sugar. That's what it is. It's simply that ability of reconfiguring 6 carbon dioxide molecules into one glucose molecule.